I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute, and your devil's advocate on this fall's ballot. Only in the Denver County and City proposition, or is it Initiative 300, which will say that you need more sick time and what was it again? Safety time. You need safe time. We all need some safe time. Representing on that side of this issue, and the good Reverend Mariah Hayden. Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
Once they let girls be reverends, you know the whole world's in trouble. And from the Denver Chamber of Commerce, Kelly Brough, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Good to be here.
All right, let's. The reason I thought this was worthwhile, even though this is a Denver City issue, that this is a move that is going from city to city to city, and what seems to be a pretty coordinated effort to bring this sick leave time legislation or ordinance to all major cities. I'm assuming to help to make it into state law and then someday the big federal law. Am I basically seeing this right, do you think?
I think absolutely. There's actually federal legislation that's been going on a number of years. So this is an effort. If it hasn't happened at the federal level, we have other things that are going on, and so working on Denver.
Working on Denver. So who's really bringing this forward? If this is part of a national effort, who's bringing the rest of it?
Yeah, the Campaign for Healthy Families.
I'm part of a campaign for unhealthy families. We promote Twinkies and drinking.
This would be probably in opposition to that.
Okay. Give me an idea. What does Initiative 300 do?
Initiative 300 allows workers in Denver to take sick time for their own illness, their own recovery, for preventative care, for the illness of a family member. It also allows workers to take safe time. So
what is safe time?
Safe time is if you are in a domestic violence situation and you need to take time to get secure housing, to get your kids out of an abusive situation, to be in court. This policy would actually also allow you to take that time.
Sick time. I might get married again just so I could get some sick time or safe time and pretend that there's some domestic violence.
You actually don't even have to pretend. If this
Really?
goes through, then you could just take your sick time when you're sick.
Whenever I want. But the safe time, I would need to have some sort of...
It's all combined. So there's not separate safe
combined.
or sick
Okay.
time.
Now you put it in an interesting way. You said this allows employees to do this. Is that really what it does, or does it force employers to provide money when employees take this time off?
It is paid time. So it allows the employee to not have to choose between finding safe time, taking sick leave, caring for their family, caring for their children, caring for themselves, or to go to the doctor for preventative health things.
But is it fair to say this is a law that forces employers to provide it? It doesn't just allow employees to get it?
Yes, it requires that employers provide paid sick time and safe time to their employees.
Okay, now there's one truly evil organization deep in the bowels of the city and county of Denver, and that's the Denver Chamber of Commerce, from which I believe every bad tax plan and tax increase and public works project has been hatched and schemed, every bad light rail proposal and hotel and everything else. And so the idea that you're actually against this, it makes me a little nervous.
Why does it make you nervous, John?
I just don't like being on the same side with you. You can understand this, can't you?
Well, there may be others in our organization who feel the same.
No. All right. Now, the Chamber has been politically active in lots of issues, not only the tax increases that I've mentioned, but also last year you were very involved in what was known as the Doug Bruce Amendments, although they weren't really Doug Bruce Amendments, but they were Doug Bruce Amendments, and you led the campaign to defeat those, and those got wiped off the ballot. This is a city issue, and the Greater Denver Chamber of Commerce is not just the city and county of Denver. So why are you getting involved in something that is a micro issue if you're kind of a macro organization?
For a couple of reasons. You can imagine for businesses, boundaries don't mean anything. A boundary, the distinction between when you're in Lakewood and when you're in Denver, might mean something to the mayors of both of those cities, but for a business, it is about market and how you can sell your business and how you can be effective. This measure actually requires that an employer provide this benefit to any employee who works 40 hours a year in the city of Denver. So one, just record keeping, as our businesses move in and out, drivers, auditors, accountants who might do work inside Denver, there's a lot of questions about then the coverage of those workers, or for companies who have two offices.
Let me jump into there. I'm not let me see if I understand this.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that if I own a business in Lakewood, but my employee goes into Denver to fix sinks or whatever it is, and he happens to be working in Denver for more than 40 hours, this law...
A year.
A year, not a year.
This law covers that
He
employee.
delivers pizzas inside the city and county of Denver. That law covers him, even though my
Right.
business is located in Lakewood.
Exactly. So you can imagine the record-keeping challenges, and that's just for our local businesses. You know, we're becoming, and if we're successful, we'll become even more of a global marketplace here. So you're adding this benefit for workers as it's described, but it's really a new requirement that can change. Part of my workforce in Denver is now being treated differently than part of my workforce that's in another city or jurisdiction. The complication, the cost, and I think it also sends an incredibly negative message about come to Colorado to do business when we're trying to entice companies to come here. And when companies see this, majority of companies, by the way, provide this level of benefit.
Why do you hate children?
I stopped beating my wife. But right, so the majority of companies look at this and would say to themselves, where are you willing to stop? You know, where did this, at what point do you stop infringing upon that decision that happens in Colorado?
Let me ask you, as a woman of the cloth, I'm just curious, how many businesses have you run?
I have never run a business. I have run churches.
Okay. Now, when it comes to this, I'm curious why your church, the United Methodist Church, is weighing in on this political issue. Why is it a church issue and not a business issue?
I am weighing on this issue because it very much is a faith issue across the board. So not just in the United Methodist Church, but interfaith denominations all over the city have supported this initiative because it's a human issue. It impacts people, and as a Christian person, it impacts the people that Jesus tells me that I'm to be in ministry with, the people who are most vulnerable, the people who have the least access to rights and privileges, that job security. The 41% of Denver workers who do not have paid sick days, more than 70% of them are in a service kind of industry where they're interacting with the public on a regular basis, and they're serving our food and coughing in our fries and holding hands with our perfectly healthy children at daycares. And
so really this is not about the employee, it's about me, the customer?
Absolutely. I mean, as much as for providing a benefit for workers, it is about me taking my cup of coffee from the employee with pink eye who just prepared my meal and served it to me.
Well, are you willing to concede that this will have some impact on employment? That if somebody's looking to open up a sizable business in this area, that this is one of those factors that could drive them outside of the city and county of Denver to have it?
I'm not willing, no.
Why
no.
not?
I do not think that will happen.
Why not?
And it has not happened in San Francisco. San Francisco was just voted as one of the top 3 cities in which to do business and have new business in the global economy. And this has been going on for 4 years in San Francisco, and the sky has not fallen in, and the end times have not arrived. And employers actually find that employees do not abuse this policy. They're grateful for it, and
let's bring it over here. The good reverend here is telling you that employees don't abuse this, and it will not affect employment. It's not going to drive employment anyplace else. Now, we've got a terrible unemployment situation here in Colorado. It's over 8.8%, something like that.
8.5.
Yeah, 8.5, which granted is better than the national average, but
not
not
where
much.
we want it.
This is some scary stuff. Look at San Francisco.
Yeah, well, San Francisco did a number of things at the same time they did this, so that, as they will tell you, they have a hard time separating what had a positive or negative impact and what didn't. That said, you know what is most disappointing, I think, are any kind of scare tactics around, you'll never have the flu again, or whatever. Here's what I know about Colorado business. Over 90% of Colorado business is small, very, very, very small business, as in less than 50 employees. And those businesses, especially in these last few years, have had to make really hard decisions about how do we keep everybody here and keep going through tough times. As a matter of fact, how they make those decisions is like a family. Even when they're not family members, they gather employees around and they say, hey, gang, should we put more money into health insurance or do you want it in raises this year? How should I distribute this? Could we all take a little cut here so we can keep Kelly with us? Those are the kind of decisions. This removes the ability of employers and employees to make those decisions together. And in Colorado, we look different than many other major cities. We are still very much small business. This kind of mandate has an impact on small businesses. The large businesses generally provide this level of benefit. It doesn't have an impact on them. It is our small businesses that will have a tremendously negative impact.
You will admit that this is going to cost something, isn't it? If we're going to provide paid sick and, as you say, safe leave, somebody's got to pay for it. The employer has to pay for it, correct?
Yes, but look at the benefits of providing sick time, safe time. You don't have to be as concerned with someone stepping in and shutting down your restaurant because there's an outbreak of flu among your employees and your customers.
So this is pro-business.
Absolutely.
And let me ask you a question.
And the turnover
let me ask you this. If it is pro-business and it's good for business, do you think business owners are stupid now with their own policies? Are you saying that for the guy who owns that restaurant, you who have run a church, never a restaurant or a private business, you can tell him and force him to say this will make your business better and you will make more money out of it? Now, I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand, if this is good policy, won't he be doing it without your coercion?
Well, we have a whole coalition of partners beyond young 30-somethings who run churches, not businesses. We have business leaders, we have business owners in our coalition who do provide this benefit to their employees, and they talk about the low turnover and higher productivity among their employees and the lower costs associated with not having to advertise, train, hire, go through all of that new employee cost. That costs businesses. You retain employees longer.
Wonderful, wonderful answer to a question I didn't ask. So can I bring you back to
Sure.
that? Now, tell me, if this is good policy and good business, why do you need to coerce private business owners if this is going to be good for them? Why won't they just do it themselves without your forceful hand?
59% of workers in Denver do have this benefit. So many businesses do. And this is to provide for those businesses that don't. It's to provide for the employees that don't. And it's minimal.
It's minimal?
We are not talking about, it's 5 days for small businesses, which the policy makes an allowance for. So small businesses.
Under 10 employees.
Under 10 employees,
Small
correct?
business under 10 employees. San Francisco
5
did not
basic
have
days.
that requirement. Theirs was much higher. They also did not have the 40-hour-a-year requirement as built into ours as either.
And that came, the 5 days versus 9 days came in talking with small business owners about how this initiative would impact their business.
What about the other 40% that have decided to run their business differently? Ever since we passed that pesky little 13th Amendment, no one has to work for an employer he or she doesn't want to. That's why there's a marketplace for both employment and for labor. There's a freedom that happens there. Talk to me a little bit about the liberty issue, that people are free to take jobs that they like and jobs that they don't like, and they can quit when they want. Why beat up an employer when the market, if it's going this way, why would anybody work for an employee that's so mean?
I think we all know people who are looking for jobs and who have been let go from good jobs and at this point are looking for any job. And this just sets an across-the-board standard for business. So yes, I want to work for an employer that provides me health insurance and paid sick time and vacation time and time flexibility. But in this economy, I may not have that option.
She says that this has minimal cost. Minimal. It's minimal cost. Why a big organization like yours? Why would you care about this?
Again, it's small employers. That's who we represent primarily at the Chamber of Commerce. They have a huge impact. So an employer less than 10, the average sick leave time taken by workers, by the way, is lower than even the numbers that are in this ordinance. So it's hard to even understand policy-wise, why would you put this level in? It also doesn't recognize, I think, that critical decision between employers and employees. It removes an employee's ability to trade shifts. I worked shift work in my life. I actually loved the chance to call and say, hey, John, would you take this shift?
I'm not feeling well.
I'm not
Will you
feeling
take it?
well, or I want the time off, and I'll take yours. That was I loved that benefit. I didn't have to use any leave to do it. This removes the employee's ability. So not
This
only
does not remove the employee's ability to trade shifts. It actually encourages the employees.
So there's some disagreement then that I suspect would be ironed out through lawsuits and, what we know is the city of Denver alone, who is not exempted, the government workers were all exempted in San Francisco. City of Denver is included. It's been determined by the city attorney's office. Would cost over $700,000 to implement it for some of their own workers.
Hang on a second. You're telling me that the city and county of Denver, the government workers, the
Yes.
city says this is going to cost $700,000 to implement.
The combination of
This is just for their workers.
Covering their workers and then having to enforce the law because the city of Denver is required to
How does that
enforce
jive with your assertion that this is a minimal cost?
Well, if you look at the $700,000 that it will cost, is a drop in the bucket compared to our compared to our city budget.
So if the average worker in Denver makes $50,000 a year, which by the way they do, the average government worker, then why don't you calculate how many jobs that $700,000 is? A drop in the bucket, because when you tell those workers you're now unemployed, and remember, Denver's not running a budget that they've had deficit budgets for multiple years. So just in city government, you will face a challenge.
But I want to be really clear. We're not talking that this is going to cost the city. It's going to cost the city only for its own employees.
No,
so
that's-
every
and
business.
to enforce.
That's the line
enforce it.
item for this initiative. And that's the worst case scenario. Again, if the sky falls in and every employee in the city of Denver takes their full 5 or 9 paid sick days.
Well, they'd be 9 because the city's more than 10 employees.
But other businesses who would only take 5.
What's the incentive not to take all your sick and safe days?
Because you might need them.
No, but you have 5 sick days and how many safe days? Are those 5?
That's 5
Okay.
altogether.
And it's per year?
Yes, up
All right.
to, but you can't carry it over.
If you can't
Maximum
carry it
of.
over, then you have an incentive to use all 5. If I'm in December and I've only used 1 of my 5, what incentive do I have as an employee not to call in sick or safe 4 more times that last month? What's my incentive?
You have
that?
to accumulate it. So a worker gains 1 hour of paid sick time for every 30 hours they work. So it will take, at a big business, it will take the entire year to accumulate 9 days. You don't start over with 9 days on January 1. You can keep and hold on to your 9 days.
So somebody's got to keep all the accounting of this in the business.
Until,
Yes.
right.
By the law.
By the law. All right, but you haven't answered my question. I've worked all year. I've got it in my bank account. I'm going to lose these 5 days at the end of the year.
You don't lose them.
You said it doesn't carry over.
Well, once you start to accrue more than the 5 that you have, you will lose. You will
Right,
not have
right.
more than that. So
Okay.
your point is well taken, John, that I very well then may say, well, gosh, my next month, I'm going over my 5. Why should I not take some time?
It's amazing how many people are sick on Fridays and Mondays.
There are patterns.
So there is. What is the incentive if I have more than enough days? What is my incentive not to use it?
As a parent, I know that if my kids get sick, they don't do so at my convenience. They do so according to the illness of their teacher who came in sick or their peers in school whose parents don't have paid sick time.
Wonderful answer to a question I didn't ask.
Yes, I will finish your answer. So if my kid gets sick and I need to take 3 days off because they got a horrible version of the flu and I've been caring for them for 3 days, and then, because kids like to share, then I get the flu for another 3 days. So I need my full 5 days at that point. I had a woman who called in.
Wait. Because we're limited in time. You're not focusing on my question. If I have this extra day that I'm going to lose if I don't use it, it's use it or lose it. Why? What is my incentive not to use it?
It's going to take you 4 months to accumulate another day off.
But I already have enough days. If I'm already maxed out, I'm going to lose that day, correct? So my incentive is to use that day, correct?
If you want to take the risk that in the next 4 months you won't need it.
But that's the way that works. Am I misunderstanding this? Let's
No,
bring
I
it over
don't
here.
think so. If you're getting the full 9, too, you're going to get it every 6 weeks, basically. You're going to earn another day, roughly. You know, again, I don't think the argument here is, you know, are workers, do they deserve time off? Do we all get sick? Yes, we do. I have sick leave. Do I always use it when I should? No, I don't. So it in and of itself, we know, sometimes doesn't prevent somebody from coming into the workplace. And I think in Colorado...
I like my coworkers to see how miserable I am when I'm sick. I like bringing it all in to show them.
Well, and I think we have a committed group of workers, committed employers. We know the only way we're going to be successful is working together. The real question here is, why would you impose it, you know, legally upon businesses and not let it be a decision that is made about what is best, what makes me the most competitive, how do I make sure I slow down turnover of my workforce, what does that look like, what's the number of days, is it more vacation or is it more sick leave? That decision, we would argue, has to be left, and it can't be city by city a different requirement.
Let me take it to you for a minute, though. We have certain laws to protect workers. We don't have those laws to protect employers. They seem to take it. You know, they're the ones who you can't fire people without fear of a lot of retribution and lawsuits. You can quit whenever you want, and that doesn't seem to be a problem. But there are certain laws to protect workers when they're working. You know, I think it's a ridiculous idea, but we have these stupid child labor laws. You know, we had a factory that those small hands can get into the machines.
Don't tell my kids.
Okay. And we also have a minimum wage law. We also have OSHA requirements. We have all these laws that are there to protect, because there are some people, as you said, they need a job, and this is it. We force truckers to take breaks and sleep for our own safety.
Yes.
Why doesn't this compare to that?
Well, the rule doesn't change in terms of those. Most are passed federally, right? So around the country, we're following the rules of the game as companies. It's much easier.
You're telling me that if this was a federal mandate, you'd be happy with it? I don't think so.
No, I'm not saying we'd be happy with it. I'm not saying it's still the right. But why are there other laws in place that are easier to manage?
Minimum wage law, which I think is going to come to bite us in the tuckus if we ever have a period of stagflation, but that is a local law.
But at some point, no, it's a state law.
That's what I mean.
It's a state law.
I should say it's not federal.
And so that's still, right? I think we could still argue, and I'll take my next devil's advocate opportunity when we're facing a federal or state discussion on the issue. But right now, this issue is about city by city by city. Do we really want to have different rules that employers have to keep track of, that employees have to keep track of? And instead of starting to recognize, you know, it's not, that's complicated and costly.
What is the law right now? Is there a law when it comes to sick leave? There's a law when it comes to vacation, isn't there?
No, I don't think so. Okay. You think there's a vacation?
I mean, I don't have to give my employees vacation?
No,
I've been giving them vacation for years. I
want to say I'm sorry to everyone who works for Jon Caldara.
For so many reasons.
For many reasons, not just leave alone. What was your question?
Vacation, other requirements.
Yeah, I think there is a safe law, I believe, that's already on the books in the state of Colorado with regard to domestic violence situations. And I think that's already on the books for statewide. Does that sound right?
I don't know.
I think so. That's the one I think of.
We've got a few minutes left, and I feel terrible beating up a woman of the cloth, but you're on devil's advocate.
You don't feel bad.
You're right. I don't feel bad.
I think he's going to sleep
fine
fine
tonight.
tonight.
Be honest.
I was raised Catholic. That color doesn't scare me. Sister Florida, 4'2" of pure meanness. She scared me.
I could get my ruler.
Do you have a ruler? All right. This issue has a huge emotional component to it. It seems as though the business, I don't see a whole lot of business support. Do you have much business support for this? Out of those groups that are supporting it, you know, where's the the Federation of Independent Businesses, the NFIB, for instance, Casey, the Colorado Association of Commerce and Industry. I mean, any of those business groups working for it?
We have spent our time building relationships with individual employers and have reached out to mostly small businesses and gotten their sign-on. So we have 26 businesses, small businesses mostly, who have signed on in support.
26 out of the tens and tens of thousands of businesses here
It
in the
doesn't sound like a lot, does it? But when you think about the 26 different relationships that are forged with that company,
how many of those
and
are
their
medical
employees.
marijuana dispensaries?
You know, I don't know if they've looked at those yet. We should. Thank you
get right
for
on
the
that.
heads up.
My pleasure. Who's fighting against this?
Every group I think you just listed is in a coalition in opposition. And again, you know, the opposition is not that we don't think as businesses we shouldn't provide benefits to our workers. That's not what this argument is about. The argument is about, should it be mandated for all businesses to have to do this in the city and county of Denver? And that's the piece we're arguing against. You'd hear many businesses who are working with us to defeat this tell you they provide this benefit. They do see its value. They see why they should do it, and it works for their company. But they don't think there should be a policy that overrides their ability to make that decision.
We've got about a minute left. Give me a reason. Let's go this way. You finished up for me. Why do we vote against this?
You vote against this because during this time, the number one issue for all of us should be about putting Coloradans back to work. We shouldn't take our eye off of it. There's no question in my mind, whether well-intentioned or not, this does two things. It costs money. It costs money to administer it and to be overseen by the city and county of Denver, and for our employers, and for our ability to attract new companies to Colorado.
Tell me why I need to vote for this.
You need to vote for this because it keeps Coloradans in their jobs. It's a public health issue. It keeps us well and safe. It is good for business. And because a woman named Mary called my office looking for rental assistance, and she needed $200 because she missed 5 days of work, and those were unpaid.
Reverend, thank you. Kelly, thank you, and thank you. Tell a friend. Listen for me late nights on 850 KOA. Check out independenceinstitute.org. We'll see you next week.